I unlocked a power called recall, the most pathetic joke in human history. It supposedly resets any lifeless object within 3 feet back to its factory settings. In the field, it was a total bust. Reset a book, reset a rag, you just end up with a slightly cleaner rag. I was just a low-rent courier, the glorified errand boy of the zombie apocalypse. My girl swiped our very last pack of Oreos and hopped into some stranger's SUV without a second glance. Before peeling out, she tossed a crumpled wrapper at my boots like I was a stray dog. "Don't be mad, babe," she sneered. "You're just dead weight." "You're a corpse anyway." As they vanished, I stood there, starving, my eyes glued to that piece of plastic trash on the asphalt. That container, though. Wait. A jagged thought pierced my brain. Recall. Suddenly, the rich, savory scent of beef stew hit the air. Beneath the jagged foil lid, the noodles were pristine and bone-dry, nestled beside 3 untouched flavor pouches. It turns out my gift wasn't a joke at all. Everyone just lacked the vision to see its true potential. Original state didn't mean a minute ago. It meant the day of production. An empty carton of ramen wasn't just garbage. It was a full sealed meal. My heart started thundering against my ribs, not from the terror of the undead, but from pure, unadulterated adrenaline. I scanned the looted convenience store. The aisles were a graveyard of shredded labels and hollow jugs. To any other survivor, this was just filth. To me, it was a literal goldmine. I scrambled to boil water, knowing damn well the smell of hot food brings the monsters. I moved like a ghost, creeping toward the storage room tucked away on the shop's 2nd floor. I barricaded the entrance with heavy steel racking until the room felt like a fortress. Once secure, the real testing began. I placed the discarded noodle cup on the dusty concrete floor restore. A shimmering pulse of light washed over the plastic, and suddenly a sealed brand new meal sat before me. I nearly wept with relief. Within 10 minutes, I had 60 meals stacked high. My ability's cooldown was a mere 10 seconds. This meant I could own the world. I didn't stop at ramen. I grabbed a crushed bone-dry bottle of water next. Restore. Instantly, I was holding a 500 milliliter bottle of crystal clear, purified spring water. I turned to a gutted medical box nearby. One thought later, I was holding a completely fresh, fully stocked trauma kit. My breath caught. Food, water, medicine. The holy trinity of survival were now mine in infinite supply. Enjoy your cookies, Rulin. Just you wait. You'll be crawling back begging me for a single scrap of what I have. I spent the next 3 days in total isolation. The mountains of trash in that stockroom became my primary raw materials. Pringles Hershey bars shortbread, if it was edible, and had a wrapper, I brought it back to life. Half the room was packed with drinks. But the real prize was an empty butane tank and a portable burner I'd scavenged. Finally, a hot meal. I checked the heavy locks one last time and prepped for the next phase. With the windows blacked out, I tore open 3 flavor packs and dropped the dry noodles into the boiling pot. As I stirred, that nostalgic salty aroma hit me like a physical blow. My nose finally remembered what real food was. The tears fell as I shoveled it down. It was the most satisfying meal and the only peace I'd known since the world ended. I washed it all down with cold water until my stomach felt like it was ready to burst. My brain finally clicked back into gear. Hiding in a hole wasn't a long-term solution for survival. This shop was a ticking time bomb for scavengers or biters. I needed a real fortress and some serious hardware. Hoarding snacks just makes you a target. I packed 2 heavy-duty duffels, refusing to be anyone's easy prey. I prepped for the gauntlet. I eased the door open just enough to see a handful of rotters shuffling aimlessly through the wreckage. I took one long, steadying breath, white-knuckling my secret weapon, a pristine factory-sharp paring knife. The edge was lethal and steady in my grip. It was finally time to move. Leaving that store was a suicide mission. But I navigated the back alley labyrinth to dodge the main hordes. Whenever a lone stray lunged, I tossed a restored soda can to bait them, then ended it with a quick blade to the brain. I was heading for Langwan Heights in the west. That was the only destination that mattered now. It was a luxury gated community, fortified with massive walls and elite security systems built to withstand a siege. More importantly, my folks were there. I was stuck at some college party when the first siren started screaming. The lines went dead weeks ago. Finding them was my only obsession, but the trek to Langwan was a literal gauntlet. The city was paralyzed. Gridlock had turned the main boulevards into a graveyard of rusted steel and shattered glass. The horrors I witnessed on those streets made my ex's betrayal feel like a playground insult. The nightmare was just beginning. Civilization had breathed its last. As twilight deepened on day 3, the Langwan estate finally appeared through the gloom. Heavy iron barricades stood sealed with armed sentries pacing the ramparts. This place had transformed into a fortress for the living. I scoped the perimeter from the shadows. Getting inside meant surviving their twisted screening process. I stashed my main gear in a nearby storm drain, keeping only 2 waters and a single sleeve of crackers for my cover. I had to play the part of a broken stray. "Who goes there?" a voice barked from above. I raised my palms and let them see my face. "I'm a resident, Lin Fan, Building 17. Silence fell as the guard likely keyed his mic to verify my records. The massive iron slab groaned, opening just wide enough for a man with a twitchy, paranoid expression to squeeze through. He gripped a rusted steel pipe like a weapon. "Papers," he grunted, jerking his chin toward my pockets. I fished out my ID, keeping my blade hidden as I handed it over. He scrutinized the card, then eyed me with cold judgment. "Where's your gear?" he demanded. I dropped my gaze, letting my voice crack with a rehearsed tremor of terror. "Bandits took everything. This is every scrap of food I have left." He looked suspicious, but my skeletal, pathetic appearance sold the lie. His posture softened slightly. "Get inside, and don't forget the protocols. New arrivals pay a 50% tax for the communal pool." I was ready. I nodded meekly, surrendering 1 water and half the crackers. He snatched the loot with a look of pure disgust, then waved me through into the complex. The internal scene brought a wave of relief. The atmosphere was thick with tension, but there was order patrols and people fortifying the walls. Families were huddled together inside the old community center, seeking safety in numbers. It felt like a sanctuary amidst the slaughter, a fragile bubble protecting us from the carnage outside. The intake clerk informed me that the estate was now ruled by a man they called Brother Leopard. Apparently, he was just the building's property manager before the world burned. He'd developed some kind of seismic power when the end began, organizing a militia and trading daily rations for labor. If you wanted extra food, you had to enlist in the security detail or the hauling crews. I used my frail appearance as an excuse to opt out. No squads for me. My only mission was finding my parents. But when I reached my front door, my heart stopped. The security gate was smashed, and the apartment had been completely gutted. Reality hit me like a physical blow. I burst inside, screaming for them like a man possessed. "Dad, Mom." Only a hollow, deathly silence answered. Dust coated the dining table. They hadn't been home in several days. Scuff marks on the floor suggested a struggle, but the absence of blood was my only sliver of hope. I collapsed in a heap, paralyzed by a wave of pure terror and confusion. Then heavy boots echoed in the hallway. A mocking voice drifted in. "Well, look at that. One little rat managed to crawl back into the trap." I snapped my head up to see 2 thugs blocking the exit. The bald leader was drilling holes through me with his stare. That was Scorpion, one of Leopard's enforcers. He was eyeing me like I was a fish on a chopping block. "Looking for the previous tenants. Your folks fell way behind on their protection tax last week." "They couldn't pay, so we tossed them. This unit belongs to us now." My pupils shrank in total shock. I screamed, demanding to know where they were. "We dumped them in the wasteland. Dead weight doesn't last long out there. But hey, if you've got skills and don't mind being our errand boy, we might let you stay as our pet." I'd been a fool to think this was a refuge. It was just another shark tank. My fingers crept toward the small blade hidden in my pack. As they closed in, I gripped my razor-sharp paring knife, ready to fight for every inch of my life. I was braced for the end when a woman's voice, sharp as ice, sliced through the room and commanded them to stop. The thugs locked up tight. Scorpion's arrogant smirk instantly turned to a mask of pure dread. His face contorted into a pathetic, groveling expression as he realized who was standing there. A woman in black tactical gear stood in the doorway, clutching a long blade dripping with fresh, dark crimson. Her elite team stood at her back. That was Sun Lin, the most dangerous psychic in the complex and a total powerhouse. She was known as Brother Leopard's personal executioner. Ignoring the thugs, she pinned me with a cold stare. "Explain this mess," she commanded indifferently. I grabbed onto that lifeline. "They're trying to shake me down." Scorpion's face went white as he stammered, "Captain, don't listen to him. Their folks defaulted on the credits, so we're just repossessing the place. Is a two-man squad really necessary to jump an eviction?" She jerked her chin at the exit. Her voice was barely a murmur, yet it felt heavy enough to crush bone. "Beat it." The guy scrambled like a rat from a sinking ship, hauling his partner along. Adrenaline ditched me and my legs turned to water. Then there was Sun Lin tracking me with a sharp, suspicious scowl. "Keep your distance from that crew." "Wait, Captain," I blurted out. "They took my parents. Look for Lin Yanghua and Washi." She stopped short. "The names ring a bell." Word was that Thug Leopard dumped the rejects at the derelict plant past the north gate. My stomach did a slow roll. A gutted factory. No rations, no security. Just a death trap. This wasn't bad luck. It was an execution order. The moment she cleared the doorway, I kicked the latch home. Saving them was the priority. But I needed calories to keep from hitting the floor. My eyes caught a jagged, oxidized metal bar in the corner. I brushed the surface. Restore. In a heartbeat, the rust vanished into a gleaming, heavy-duty lead pipe. A frigid, polished shimmer replaced the rot. Perfection. Then I spotted it, Dad's ancient bug-out bag buried under some trash. Tucked inside were a tactical folding spade, a camping hatchet, and a serrated combat blade. Decades of grime had ruined the edges. Restore. Suddenly the steel hummed edges sharpening to a wicked factory-new finish. I used the midnight shift swap to ghost my way toward the northern perimeter. This sector was a ghost town compared to the main gate. 2 sentries were half asleep, giving me an easy path around the security cams. Grabbing my reinforced cord, I vaulted the 10-foot barrier effortlessly. Ahead, the skeletal frame of the plant rose from the darkness like some sleeping iron beast. The air tasted like decay, broken only by the guttural moans of a stray walker. I white-knuckled my weapon and hugged the shadows. I sprinted for the facility, but the dead were thickening on the ground. I dove for cover behind a massive pillar near the loading dock. Squinting through the gloom, I counted at least 13 or 14 shamblers. They were fixated on the entrance, shredding their nails against the iron. Then I heard it, the muffled wailing of people trapped inside. My folks were in that slaughterhouse. Rage flared in my chest, but I knew a frontal assault was just suicide. I scouted the exterior until I spotted a line of clerestory windows perched 13 feet above the asphalt. That was my way in. I grabbed a chunk of concrete and launched it toward a rusted-out sedan sitting 50 yards away. The stone connected, shattering the glass with a loud, ringing impact. The bait worked perfectly. The pack broke off from the door, drawn by the ruckus like moths to a flame. With the coast clear, I darted toward the brickwork and yanked the spool of rope from my gear. I looped the line through a climbing pick and tossed it high, feeling the steel bite deep into the ledge. It held. Holding my breath, I shimmied up the line with every ounce of strength I had left. I tumbled through the frame into a cavernous workshop, littered with decaying turbines and heaps of industrial trash. Pale moonlight cut through the holes in the ceiling. Then, from the darkness of the far bay, the sound of voices drifted over. I heard quiet weeping and the low rumble of a heated debate. I ghosted toward the sound, staying low. Tucked behind a wall of scrapped gear, I saw 30 or 40 people squeezed together for warmth. They were paralyzed with fear, mostly seniors and kids who'd been tossed aside by the system. Then I saw them. Mum was buried in Dad's chest, her shoulders shaking as he gripped her tight. Tears hit me like a physical blow. I rasped their names, and the entire group flinched like I'd fired a shot. Dozens of eyes fixed on me. My folks scrambled to their feet, their expressions melting from horror to disbelief. Mom let out a broken sob and practically tackled me, clinging on as if she were trying to merge our souls. In that embrace, the nightmare outside felt 1,000 miles away. I finally felt solid again. Then a voice like gravel in a blender cut through the air. Who invited the kid to the party? A guy with a jagged scar across his cheek stepped out, flanked by 3 heavies. He was sizing me up like a paycheck. He locked onto my supply pack with a hungry look. Nice hustle, kid. Coming all this way solo is quite the feat. Now let's see the loot. Dump the bag. I stepped in front of my family, eyes narrowing. Back off. This is mine. Yours. The man barked a cynical laugh. In this hole, everything belongs to the guy with the most muscle. Be a good boy and hand it over, or things get messy. He flashed a rusted blade. The message was loud and clear. The goons closed in, eyes dripping with pure malice. The sick and elderly just watched, paralyzed by terror. They were speechless, casting nothing but pitiful glances. My old man saw the danger and yanked me back. He stepped up, forcing a desperate grin at Scarface. Boss, easy now. The kid's just dumb and reckless. Take the scraps in his pack. It's yours. Just don't hurt him. But the fuse was already lit. I don't want the bag anymore. I want his head. Scarface lunged, his hand snapping toward my throat. My vision sharpened. I surged forward, swinging the iron rod with brutal intent. Bone snapped like dry wood. His hand hung at a sickening, unnatural tilt. The entire factory floor went stone silent. Nobody expected the scrawny kid to bite back. Sweat beaded on Scarface's brow. You actually hit me. Got him, I want him begging for death. The thugs snapped out of it, eyes turning feral. They rushed me howling. I tossed my gear to my dad and gripped the pipe. Defense was over. A timber bat swung for my skull. I arched back, letting the wood whistle through empty air. I buried the pipe in his gut, dropping him. No wasted motion. I targeted their joints. This was surgical survival. What really terrified them was my pace. I didn't seem to tire. 2 went down, and the others wavered. Scarface clutched his mangled arm, eyes full of shock and fury. What are you? Some kind of awakened? I didn't answer. My stare was as cold as a grave. Every atrocity I'd seen and every scar I carried ignited into a furnace of pure white-hot rage. Leave now or bleed out. Scarface's eyes darted. He hadn't planned on meeting a monster today. We were stalemated. Then a thunderous boom shook the iron gate. 1 hit. 2, 3. Panic erupted instantly. The horde was hammering at the entrance. The walkers were finally breaking through. Their hunger had spiked. Scarface suddenly didn't give a damn about our little fight. They threw furniture against the vibrating steel. But the latch groaned and started to shear right off. Despair choked the air. Seeing my parents shaking, I knew that rusted gate was seconds from failing. The metal was trash, but a wild plan formed. I marched toward it. Got a death wish, kid. I tuned him out and pressed my palm against the freezing rust. Then I performed a literal miracle. As if time were rewinding, the craters in the metal just started to smooth away. The warped frame groaned back into place, and the dull rust turned into a polished silver sheen. The door became an unmovable mountain, silencing the screams outside. The factory floor turned quiet as a tomb. Every eye was on me. They were absolutely paralyzed by what they'd just seen. Scarface gaped, his shattered arm forgotten. You can repair things, is that... I didn't offer explanations. I pulled back and burned him with a look. In this hell, power is the only valid currency. My brutality combined with this sorcery was too much. His spirit snapped like a dry twig. His tough guy act disintegrated. The greed in his eyes was replaced by a hollow, gut-wrenching dread. I'm sorry, sir, I was blind. Have mercy. I gave him nothing but the silence he deserved. I walked back to my folks, meeting my mother's wide-eyed disbelief. My focus shifted back to my blood. Mom was a wreck of worry and pride. I squeezed her hand. Listen, Mom, don't be afraid. I'm here. I reached into my pack and pulled out self-cooking stew meat and clean water. Eat up, Pop. The scent of real food hit the air, snapping everyone's attention like a whip. The other survivors watched like ghosts, forgetting the last time they'd seen a full meal. They eyed the rations with desperate hunger. Scarface and his crew were entranced, pupils blown wide. Out here, food is worth more than gold. Producing it rattled them harder than fixing the door. After settling my parents, I locked eyes with Scarface. New rule, I'm the one in charge now. My voice was quiet but sharp as a razor. He finally bowed, his head completely broken. Seizing the base was easy. People crumble when facing raw strength and a full pantry. His street cred was worthless now. In this wasteland, labor is just another resource to manage. I put them on sentry duty and perimeter sweeps. I kept the keys to the food myself. I spent my mornings behind a bolted door, feigning a stock count, while my gift churned out enough calories to save us all. From hot rations to survival kits, I conjured it all, stacking crates high as the clock ticked through the night. The interface was redlining, but the payoff was watching the hunger leave their eyes. Suddenly, I wasn't just another survivor. I was something more. They looked at me like I was a saint, whispering about some rare storage quirk that held a bottomless pit of supplies. Bit by bit, that grey hollow look on their faces vanished, replaced by the warm glow of people who finally felt human again. I turned that rotting industrial shell into a tight ship, every gear turning, with purpose for the first time in years. Mom and Dad took charge of the floor, their heads held high again, now that they had a mission and a reason to wake up. Spirits were soaring throughout the camp as we finally felt the wind at our backs. Yet one bitter memory kept eating at me. My parasite of a brother over in the Lone district, the man who cast us aside. He dumped our own parents in the dirt like trash, leaving them for dead. And I was counting the seconds until payday. Truth was that district had real walls and high-end security, a massive upgrade from this drafty old warehouse. This dump was just a temporary fix. I wanted my family and my crew to have a fortress they could actually call home. The time had come for a long overdue reunion with dear old brother Bao. A week of grinding later, we were ready to roll after I used my touch to jumpstart a few dead electric cars back to life. Those rigs looked mint, like they'd just driven straight out of a showroom before the world ended. We geared up with tactical lids and heavy boots, wielding rebar spears and axes forged from the bones of the factory. Scarface and his heavy hitters had become my shadow, bound to me by more than just survival. Proper meals and winter gear go a long way when the world is ending. I vetted 20 of the toughest souls and sized them up. Standing there in our kit, I kept the speech short. We aren't crawling back for scraps. We're reclaiming our stake in Lawn. It's got the walls we need and the beds we deserve. We're building a sanctuary. If you're in Mount Up. Not a single soul stayed behind. They'd seen enough of my magic to follow me into hell. Our 20-man convoy tore across the wasteland toward the district gates. As we rolled up, the sentries froze, eyes bugging out at our kitted-out unit that looked like a Tier 1 strike team. "Hey, Scarface, thought we tossed your sorry hideout. What are you doing back here?" My right-hand man threw his shoulders back and barked, "We've got business with Bao." The guard just scoffed. "Business with a bum like you," he sneered, just as I kicked the door open and hopped out. I met his gaze with ice-cold focus and said, "Inform your boss that Lin Fan is home." I was a stranger to him, but the way my guys flanked me told him everything he needed to know. He fumbled for his comms, looking shaken. The massive steel doors groaned, and out stepped Bao, flanked by his personal goon squad and their old captain. Bao looked entirely too comfortable for the end of the world, a soft, bloated, middle-aged man who hadn't missed a meal. His eyes, sharp and full of himself, darted over our pristine gear and the fire in my men's expressions. I saw the hunger and shock fight for space in his gaze. Well, look who's making all the noise, he drawled. Little Lin Fan. Been a minute, kid. Where'd you find the gold mine? I cut him off. Let's skip the small talk, Bao. My people are moving into the district. Bao let out a belly laugh that echoed off the concrete walls like I'd just told the joke of the century. You're hallucinating, boy. This is my kingdom. I'm the one who built this fort. Give me one reason to open the gate. I gave the signal, and Scarface slammed a heavy chest onto the pavement. He cracked the lid, revealing a mountain of sealed food packs. The laughter choked in Bao's throat, while his men nearly fell over themselves. The shock was thick enough to taste. Their walls were high, but their guts were empty, and their population was exploding. Stocks were bone dry. A decent meal was a myth, and they were lucky to get a crust of moldy bread once a day. Where the hell did you score this? He sputtered. I didn't blink. Doesn't matter. You want in or not? Greed practically dripped from his pores. What's the deal then? Simple, my crew gets housing, I keep the pantry full, and you handle the perimeter. His expression soured instantly. You're overplaying your hand. I'm the one running this show. I'm not splitting the crown with a kid. We're partners, or I'm your replacement. Your choice. He sneered. You and whose army? 20 guys against my wall? I signaled my lead, and my elite squad surged forward in a terrifyingly synchronized stomp. They hit the ground as one, radiating a lethal energy that made every guard on that wall rethink their life choices. The temperature plummeted. My wingman was finally playing his long-won ace. These were elite hitters. I felt my crew's nerves start to fray instantly. I stayed stone-faced, locked on the woman who'd once saved my skin. She stared back, her eyes caught between deep suspicion and pure wonder. Captain, you think we're faking? Shunling met me with cold silence. Mr. Lin, 200 guards wait inside. Don't throw your life away. Her warning was sincere. Brother Bao just laughed like a goddamn hyena. Drop the food. Maybe I'll let your parents stay here as locals. The rest of you get lost. That was his final bottom line. He wanted everything. I gave him a look, cold enough to kill. We're done talking. I pointed at the skyscraper looming behind the gates. Open up or I'll erase that entire building from the skyline. Dead silence hit first. Then the whole mob just started howling. Bao laughed until he choked. Hear this guy? What a riot. Shunling didn't smile. She knew I wasn't telling a joke. I went cold and started the clock. The laughter died instantly. Panic set in. That tower was their heart. At one, Bao cracked. He's bluffing, he shrieked. Kill him. But the timer hit 0. I didn't hold back. I pushed my gift to the absolute breaking point. I focused on that massive tower and whispered, reset. The world went silent as hundreds of terrified eyes watched. That 30-story monolith flickered, turned ghost thin, and simply evaporated into nothing. Pure terror froze every face. Bao's men just broke and collapsed. Weapons hit the pavement in a chorus of clattering steel. They ran like the devil was coming. Bao just turned white. His legendary 200-man army had just dissolved in a heartbeat. Shunling's crew stayed put, but they looked absolutely shell-shocked. Her hand trembled on her sword. Her eyes had changed completely. She wasn't looking at a man anymore, she was looking at God. I walked toward Bao. He cowered like a terrified, broken animal. Are we coming in? I asked. He just nodded and scrambled away. I didn't look back. Let's move, I told my stunned crew. They followed me like disciples, their faces filled with pure worship. They knew I was a hitter, but deleting skyscrapers was different. We marched into the complex. Not a single soul stopped us. Shunling trailed us like a guard. I was the owner now. I purged the trash immediately. Bao's bullies were tossed into cages. I didn't kill them, I just stripped their powers away for good. My gift had evolved. I could reset any living body now. I could even revert an ability core to its dormant state. Bao became an ordinary, out-of-shape nobody in a single heartbeat. He was finished. Now I needed to recruit Shunling's squad. They had honor. I fixed a broken sword right before her eyes. I took a crate of useless expired pills and reset them. They were brand new. She finally saw my true, terrifying power. She couldn't even fathom the sheer scale of my newfound authority. Silence reigned before she finally bowed. The Liren unit is now yours. After crushing the Liren squad, I finally controlled the base and rules. Work meant food for everyone. I bought loyalty while cutting out rot. Langwan thrived under my management. My parents were proud, never asking how I became their singular pillar. Once stable, I wondered about the actual limits of my strange gift. From food to steel. Could I fix a person? I found one. To everyone else, that guard was already a walking, breathing corpse. I cleared the room and touched him. White light drowned his screams. The wounds vanished completely. A massive surge of shock hit my chest. Success. I had literally rewound his body to the state before infection. The plague wasn't permanent. This felt bigger than rebuilding a whole city. Curing the virus meant saving everyone. A massive vision began to form. First, though, I had a very personal debt that required immediate collection. I asked Chunling for intel on the fire user and my ex. She tapped a map pointing toward a massive warehouse on the west. They've dug in deep, she said. They're the most dangerous outfit around. Their boss is Shunyan. My eyes narrowed into sharp, cold ice. We're visiting tomorrow. I left at dawn with only my elite squad. We drove the heavy armored rig straight to their massive grocery fortress. The place was a war zone, walls crawling with many armed snipers. Alarms screamed as we arrived. Identify yourselves. I shouted my name out. I'm here for Shunyan. The guards scrambled to find him immediately. They didn't know me, but my base's reputation had them on edge. The gates opened. A man in red stepped out, followed by Rui An. After months apart, it was clear she was living well through flattery. Shock hit her first, then a smug grin. Look who crawled back. Couldn't hack it alone. She still saw me as a pathetic weakling loser. Shunyan sized me up, his eyes narrowing at my professional squad. A flicker of worry appeared, then vanished. Langwan never heard of it. No beggars here. Leave your gear as a toll, then get lost. He was dripping with ego, convinced his fire made him an invincible god. Ruian smirked. Listen to him, Lin Fan. Don't be stupid today. You aren't even worthy of his boots. She looked so petty and satisfied, I didn't flinch. Do you remember that cup of noodles you threw? She just stood there, confused. I'd been counting on this exact moment. Who cares about some food? Just leave. My face went completely cold. Funny, I remember perfectly, and I'm here to make sure you do. She laughed, pointing a finger at me. You've finally lost your mind. Make me pay for noodles, how? Shunyan joined her mocking laughter. You're too loud. I think it's time I taught you a final lesson. A sphere of flame erupted in his palm, radiating a brutal, shimmering heat. My squad braced, but I stayed still, looking at his little spark. Is that your best shot? I raised a hand. His fire simply died. That arrogant smirk vanished instantly. He stared at his empty palm, stunned. What is this? Where's my fire? He tried to summon his power, but not even a flicker appeared. His earth tier flames were gone. What did you do to me? Shunyan pointed at me, terrified. I ignored him and looked at Liu Ruyan. She was frozen with fear. Think I'm bluffing now? Her face turned white. She had seen the truth with her own eyes. The flames died silently. Xinling tossed her down like a broken bird. She begged for mercy, sobbing. I pulled a crushed noodle cup from my coat. I had saved it. Suddenly it was brand new and full again. I tore the lid off and dumped the food out. I put the empty bowl in front of her. She looked like a ghost. She knew I meant business. Through tears, she started eating the cardboard. Finally, she realized the nightmare she had unleashed. Her legs buckled and she collapsed. I just watched, cold and silent. I didn't move until every scrap of that paper was swallowed. Taking the base was a gamble, but easier than expected. Without their leader's powers, the rest folded immediately. We merged, making Lanlan the city's powerhouse. My grudge was finally settled. I researched abilities, knowing a cure would change everything. I kept it quiet, setting up a secret lab run by my parents. We treated the hopeless cases, the ones near death. Those I saved became my most loyal soldiers. My influence exploded. I traded with allies and crushed my enemies without a second thought. People called me a god or a demon. I became a myth. Regardless, I was the undisputed king of this wasteland. Year 5, Lanlun was a fortress of 100,000 people. We had walls, crops, and safety. People were finally smiling again. As their guardian, I stayed in the shadows. From my tower, I watched my city while my powers reached new heights. I could heal soil or purify water with just a thought. I was ascending. Then Linda reported an S-class threat from the west. It was intelligent, far more dangerous than any beast we had seen. S-class meant total annihilation. I looked toward the horizon. I saw a dark ocean of monsters and a throne of bones. An S-class emperor stared back, hitting me with a massive psychic wave. Linda winced, but I shrugged off the pressure with a hand wave. "We are ready," she said, "ready to die by my side." I smiled. "We aren't dying today." I turned to my people. It was time to end the nightmare. I walked toward the edge. On the wall, I faced a horde that blotted out the sun. The whole city watched the screens, hearts pounding in their chests. Then the beast roared a sound that could shatter a soul. I raised my hands to the sky. Everyone expected a massacre, but there was no hate in me, only a deep pity. My gift was never meant for killing. I closed my eyes and let go. My target wasn't some lone monster. I was lancing the infection from the very marrow of our wounded planet. Existence stalled as an ethereal, blindingly soft radiance detonated, sending Andromeda's celestial fire unfurling across the void. That tide engulfed the globe, instantly paralyzing every snarling beast it encountered. Putrid flesh mended and milky gazes sharpened as the spark of consciousness reclaimed those hollow shells. Verdant life burst through scorched soil as the radiance passed, scrubbing away the smog to reveal a long-forgotten azure canopy. Perched atop his bleached bone chair, the tyrant watched, paralyzed by sheer dread, as the cleansing glow consumed him. His frantic struggles meant nothing against a force surging from the universe's primal heartbeat. He stared down at his softening hands, a mere man again, amidst a planet reborn. The plague vanished from every host, while the scarred, dead landscapes breathed with newfound vigor. Our hellish ordeal felt like a vanishing fever dream, leaving the city of hope shrouded in absolute stillness. Watching the monitors, the masses sat paralyzed until the crushing silence finally gave way to a single broken sob. One sob became two, then a rising tide of pure relief. A thunderous ovation rocked the city as they chanted my name, while I breathed the crisp air from the ramparts. Seeing my family and Shinling, I realized I'd mended everything from the simplest meal to the earth itself. Every single piece.